is that lined up? Check. Yeah, that'll be lined up. Oh, God, that's so stupid. I'm an idiot. I was planning like an hour in advance to freaking record this. And as soon as I hit record, it's like I'm finding other things I should have like anticipated. Oh, God. Luckily, you know, as a YouTuber, people really have zero expectations for you, so it's okay if I make mistakes like that. Hey, kids. Cattlemage here. It smells good. I think it's going to be a good banana. I'm keeping up the Cattlemage trend of eating while recording. Dude, there were so many Let's Plays I tried to record back on the old channel where, you know, because back in the day I had a headset microphone, and so it was like right next to my mouth, which surprisingly, I didn't blow out my mic that much. I honestly blew my mic out more in like the last freaking episode of CATTLECAST than I did with the headset mic. But it did, however, pick up every last crunching sound I made when I was eating, like constantly just shoveling stuff in my mouth while I was recording. Because I never really made formal Let's Plays. It was more like I would be on a call with friends, we'd be playing something, and I would just like pull up OBS and just decide to start recording it and hope for the best. I liked that also because it gave me more authentic reactions, because, you know, when people know they're being recorded, they might try to play it up or they might get kind of tense. But when I record people without their permission, they don't even know they're being recorded, so I'm getting their el naturel. All of the Cattlemage Let's Plays were completely consensual. I should probably clarify that. So where the frick was I going with that? Oh yeah, in AT5's Left 4 Dead video, it's barely noticeable, but I was eating Ritz crackers while we were playing. I think you could hear some faint crunching at certain points in the video. You can't hear it as well as you could in one of my videos, because Jess actually puts music in her videos, unlike me, so. But yeah, I was just eating straight Ritz crackers while we were playing Left 4 Dead. It was like a Minecraft video I never posted with Top Hat Pig 316. It feels cursed saying that, like, not over gameplay footage, just saying that face to face with you. But yeah, there was a Minecraft video I think I was making with Top Hat Pig 316, and I just threw out the recording. It was like a 2-hour recording, and I just threw it out because it was around Christmas time, I think. I'm giving myself too much credit. It was like freaking February, and I had this package of Lifesavers mints, and I was just it's just freaking shoveling mint after mint in my mouth, and you can hear it like clicking into my teeth, clicking against my teeth and stuff. I was like, nobody's gonna want to hear this. I probably don't even have to explain it, but, you know, it's not actually very customary for you to eat and record at the same time, because it kind of messes with your audio and it makes you make eating noises into the mic, and people don't really like eating noises into the mic. Unless they do. I'm getting so freaking distracted. I forgot what the point of the video was. Oh yeah. I've got some good news for CATTLECAST. Summer is coming up. School is on its way out. And so I'm going to have a lot more free time to do videos. Because at this point in time, I only record CATTLECAST episodes when I have nothing to do on a weekend. Which, mind you, is basically every weekend. But even so, it's like, I'd like to be more available to make more videos, because I like making CATTLECAST videos, it's fun. But kids, I've been on major crunch time the past few weeks. Because finals are coming up. I'm doing finals like this coming week. And that is like, that's been needing my undivided attention because, okay, it's time for a little heart-to-heart, guys. I'm not good at school. I'm terrible, as a matter of fact. Okay, I'm not terrible, but I'm not very good. I especially suck at any of the math subjects, like science or math. So those have proven to be a big issue come finals. And I just happen to be doing my math finals on the very first finals day. I'm not upset about that. I'm happy about that. We get these huge packets for study guides for math and both math and science. Jesus Christ. Like, I have to look up 70% of the stuff on this packet. And stuff we learn throughout the year. I just don't remember it. The education system has totally failed me. That's a good banana. Okay. Bananas are only good over the span of like maybe a day. And if you miss that day, it's like, oh man, the banana's ruined now. I'm not going to eat it. It's just going to sit there and shrivel away. I know people who just eat like green bananas. Like it's totally, almost completely green. And they just, and they eat the whole thing. And it's like, I don't even see them like scrunching up their face or anything. I don't see them cringing or anything. Because to me, when I eat a green banana, it is like the grossest thing ever. It's like eating like a leaf off of a tree. Like if you just grabbed a leaf off a tree and ate it, that's what it tastes like. That's what green bananas taste like. I haven't seen anybody who eats like black bananas. Besides me, sometimes I have to, but people almost universally avoid black bananas. The perfect banana for me is, I didn't even white balance the video right, so this is actually kind of green. But I assure you it's yellow. And so a perfect banana for me is like this, but maybe a few more spots on it. Like, I like a very vibrant, like almost cartoony yellow with some brown spots on it. Because for me, that's when the banana has good consistency. It's not too hard, but it's also not too soft and mushy. And it's also the perfect flavor. Like, you get the pure sweet banana flavor. When I say like, oh, I like bananas, I'm thinking of these kind of bananas. I'm not thinking of the green ones. Sometimes I wonder. People who say they don't like bananas, is that because they just haven't had a banana that's aged to their preferred amount? I feel like this is one of those things where everybody's different. Like, maybe someone ate like a sort of yellow spotty banana and they were like, oh, I don't like that very much, and then they decided they don't like bananas. But maybe that person loves green bananas, and they'll never know that because they don't think they like bananas. Or, vice versa, something like that. When I was younger, I would eat bananas like as soon as they came from the grocery store, so they'd be pretty green. And I would think, oh, this sucks. And sometimes I would eat older bananas that were more yellow and spotty. And I would think, oh, that was good. And for whatever reason, I don't even really think I could blame my age on that. I feel like young kids still know what colors are. But I just couldn't differentiate the fact that it was because the banana wasn't ripe enough when it was green. So I just thought bananas were out to get me or something. But recently I figured it out. I know exactly how long to ferment my bananas for, generally speaking. It's easy because, I'll see that my house has bananas, and then I'll just forget about it for a few weeks. And then by the time I remember we have bananas, they're normally ripe enough. You guys ever had bananas on cereal? Dude, that stuff is so good. I'm talking like basic cereals, like George Washington cereals. Like oatmeal or Corn Flakes or Rice Krispies, something like that. Not like the crazy sugary cereals, General Mills, Kellogg's kind of shit. I'm just talking like regular old cereal with slices of banana. God, that's so good. It's like it's like nature's Lucky Charms. Oh, fuck yeah! I'm fucking Bing Crosby, baby! Have a holly jolly Christmas. Jesus Christ. The audio levels on my recording software just went bright red because of all that freaking screaming I did. Okay, what else did I want to talk about? Okay, it wouldn't be CATTLECAST without some movie talk, so let's do just that. Let's talk about movies. Okay, so first things first, that Little Mermaid movie, it's like freaking critically acclaimed now. Like, everybody loves it. So, whether or not that proves or disproves any point I made in the previous episode, that's for you to decide, because I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's way more successful than I thought it would be. Which still kind of bothers me, because, you know, that just means Disney's going to make more live-action remakes. My friend sent me a TikTok the other day. It was like someone joking about a Princess and the Frog Disney live-action remake. And it would just be like realistically 3D animated tree frogs just like singing to each other and like kissing and stuff. And it was funny on one hand because I love people who are in solidarity with me about Disney live-action movies. But on the other hand, it was kind of freaky. Because I could see that movie being made. I feel like once Disney makes a Princess and the Frog live-action movie, that's going to be like the point of no return. That's when they're going to know they hit rock bottom. Because Disney does not even care about Princess and the Frog. It's the sad reality. And nobody really talks about that movie either. So, a Princess and the Frog live-action remake would be a big thing for two reasons. One, because it'll be yet another example of Disney sucking all the joy out of their animated movies by making them weird, realistic animals that cannot emote. You know, I was thinking to myself, like, it would be so far-fetched for them to make a Princess and the Frog movie, because, and you know, that was the joke of the TikTok, is that the frogs are so unexpressive and just tiny, and it's like they're going to be talking to each other the whole movie as frogs, and that'll look so bad. But then I remembered The Lion King exists. A movie that has no human characters in it. It's just CGI animated photorealistic animals. And they cannot emote at all either. And you know, same goes for the Jungle Book movie, which came before it. It also has a huge emphasis on CGI animals that cannot emote at all, unlike in the original animated movies. So, yeah, Princess and the Frog live-action movie is not nearly as far-fetched as I had initially thought it would be. Which makes me kind of sad. Yeah, I'm not drinking soda this time, actually. I'm actually trying to cut back on the Coke. A cola. And so, unfortunately, I couldn't do the syncing up, crack in the can thing. Which is kind of a shame, because part of me wanted to make that a reoccurring sort of intro, but yeah, unfortunately, that can't happen. So I guess I'll just have to find something else to make a reoccurring gag on the show. Besides substance abuse. Oh, another thing I wanted to say about the Little Mermaid movie. Melissa McCarthy plays Ursula. Did anybody even know that? I don't know if that was news to anybody else, but that was freaking news to me. That's the only other continuation I have to the previous episode. But I mean, that's an important story development. My journalist brain is going freaking berserk over that. Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. That just shows, like, I feel like Melissa McCarthy playing Ursula in the Little Mermaid movie. I can't even say the sentence with a straight face. Because I feel like that really shows the level we're at with Disney live-action movies. Because Melissa McCarthy playing Ursula is like a joke people would make. Like years ago when people had hope for the future that Disney would not continue to peddle out Disney live-action remakes. People would jokingly say, like, yeah, wait till they make the Little Mermaid live-action, where Ursula is played by Melissa McCarthy or something. Like, that sounds like a joke someone would make, like, a year ago. But now it's a reality. It feels kind of in the same vein as, like, Chris Pratt playing Mario. Like, it feels like it felt like something someone would say as, like, a joke. It's like when the initial Mario movie casting came out and people couldn't decide it, people, like, didn't know if it was real or fake. That might have just been me. But I would just see like screen caps, like the black and white image of Chris Pratt, and it's like Chris Pratt as Mario. I'm like, no way that's real. I would see it on like YouTube thumbnails, and it was real. And so Melissa McCarthy Ursula is sort of in that after school club. God damn, it's only the 3rd episode, and I already feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I'm talking about the same 2 movies. So it's time to talk about some new movies. I want to talk about the new Evil Dead movie, Evil Dead Rise, because I don't really hear anybody talking about this movie. It's mostly just the Mario movie, the Little Mermaid movie, and it's like people are just skipping over it, like they're just going to start talking about the new releases when those start getting announced. Which I feel like is a shame, because I feel like the new Evil Dead movie is really worth talking about. Because it sort of has a lot of similarities to the more controversial movies that we've already discussed, like the Mario and the Little Mermaid movie. Because just like Evil Dead Rise, it's also based on a beloved nostalgic property set in the modern era with modern technology sort of trying to build on it. And so I feel like people should be discussing that movie more too. So I guess let's get the ball rolling here. What did I think of the Evil Dead Rise movie? I've got kind of a weird opinion on it. Because it's a movie I respect a lot more than I like. If that makes any sense. And I'm not saying that in like a negative way. I mean that in sort of a positive way. Like, I'm not trying to say the movie wasn't good. Or just sort of, criticize it. But yeah, I didn't like it I didn't like the movie from like a general audience perspective, like, oh, that was fun to watch, yeah. But I respect it for, how it stands in the Evil Dead franchise and what it did and, what it could have been. And so when I consider all those things, it's really hard for me to like say I hated it or even that I didn't like it. Like, because I really respect what Evil Dead Rise did. It's just sometimes I was getting sort of that movie theater feeling where it's like you're getting kind of restless in your seat, like, okay, maybe I don't like this. It's sort of at that point, like an hour or so into the movie where you're starting to realize, like, do I like this or not? So let's talk about the things I respect first. So right out of the gate, something that was really good about the Evil Dead Rise movie was that it had the desire to make something new. Because so many times, especially in the horror genre, sequels get made to movies not because someone has new ideas or new stories to tell. It's for money. That's why all the iconic horror movies have so many sequels that are even getting made nowadays. Is because these characters are so well known and iconic that people are going to watch these movies regardless of how good they are. Because you got the die-hard fans who watched the originals, years ago, and they loved them, and so it's sort of got that nostalgic value. So they're going to go see the movies. But you've also got general audiences who recognize these iconic characters, like the Jason's hockey mask, or the ghost face, or Freddy's claw, or even names like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so, casual moviegoers who just want to see a scary movie, they're going to recognize those names, and they're going to check them out too. So it casts a really wide net. And so that's also why a lot of the times with these big, long horror franchises, the first movie is always the best. Almost 100% of the time, except ironically, Evil Dead, the first movie is the best. Because with the first movie in a series, it's like an experiment. It's like there's no guarantee that this is going to be successful. And so a lot more effort gets put into making it a quality film, like making the director's vision a reality. Pouring your heart and soul into it. Because making money is not nearly as much of a factor. But with sequels to that movie, it's a whole different perspective. And that's why oftentimes the sequels to movies have different directors and completely different people working on it. Because with the first movie, a lot of big name studios are like, oh yeah, that's a nice movie you're making, yeah. Good luck with that. And then when the first movie is actually successful, that's when they're like, oh, hey, we'll take it from here. I had faith in you the entire time. I knew this was going to really take off. So let's say we work together on this, right? And so we see time and time again that people trying to bring these classic franchises back into the limelight, it almost never works out for them. because they're focusing too much on nostalgia or the money they're going to make. They're not getting people who are passionate about the franchise. And so that's why it was really cool with this new Evil Dead movie that not only are like the original people coming back, you know, it's being produced by both Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. That's incredible. But you can tell it was clearly made by people who were passionate about the Evil Dead franchise and wanted to make a good movie and wanted to do something new with it and tell a new story. And so I really respect Evil Dead Rise for doing that. Because, God, if it doesn't happen enough. Another thing I really appreciated about the movie was completely cutting Ash out of it, excluding him from the movie entirely. And, you know, that wasn't even a last-second thing. Bruce Campbell was saying in interviews way before the movie came out that Ash would not be present in the movie. And, God, does that take balls to do that? Because without a doubt, Ash Williams, chainsaw-wielding, double-barrel shotgun Deadite Slayer, he is without a doubt the most iconic part about the Evil Dead franchise. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here at all. His one-liners, like, he is the soul of the Evil Dead movies, the Evil Dead franchise. And so the fact that they showed that much restraint and, you know, came up with their own original characters, did not bring Ash into it at all, you just gotta respect them for doing that. I mean, that is incredible. Because it would have been so easy to just plop Ash into the movie, have him go, oh, there's a new, oh, look at this. I'm back, baby. Groovy. Yeah, look at me. It would have been so easy to do that. And, you know, most of the general audiences and even the diehard fans probably would have eaten that up. It would have been the easiest decision, it would have been the safest decision, and they didn't do it. And God, if that doesn't show faith in their ideas they had, I think that's incredible. In a similar vein, I also really appreciate how few callbacks there were to the original franchise, the original, like, trilogy. Because, you know, speaking of restraint, I am so thankful that no character ever said groovy or replaced their hand with a chainsaw or anything like that. I'm so glad they weren't constantly like, hey, you remember when this happened in the movie? Hey, you remember when this happened in the movie? Because, again, that would have been the most obvious route. That would have been the safest route. And yet they didn't do it. So I really feel like that says something about the people who worked on it. Especially with the Evil Dead franchise. Because, I mean, this franchise has been, like, self-parodying since, like, Army of Darkness. So it's even more commendable in that sense. But, you know, at the same time, the movie was still very in touch with its roots. There are references to the original franchise, but they're way more subtle. And God, is that incredible. That is the way to do, like, callbacks and references. There's a scene, it's like, it's subtle stuff, and I really appreciate it. Of course, the shotgun and the chainsaw come back. You know, when the chainsaw shows up in the movie, you can tell, you know, they're kind of winking at the audience. But in the movie, they play it totally straight because, you know, the weapons themselves are so iconic. You know, I get why they put them in the movie because, you know, it's okay to, you know, sort of elbow the audience a little bit, like, hey, you remember this? As long as it's not so in your face and clearly, like, you can read the vibe about writers making references oftentimes. And so you can tell when something is meant to be pandering or when it's meant to be, like, a genuine, like, passionate, like, callback. And I feel like there was no pandering in Evil Dead Rise. Any nods to the original were not there just to be a nod to the original. Like, they also served a story purpose within the context of this movie and this movie alone. And it's like, it feels like this should be standard stuff, but it's not. And so the fact that this movie is doing that and sort of setting this standard for, like, other, like, remakes or sequels or spiritual successors to follow, I really appreciate that. And, you know, talking about the self-parody comment, I really, seeing trailers for the movie, going in watching it, I knew I was going to really appreciate the fact that this movie was bringing the horror back into Evil Dead. Because after Evil Dead 2, no disrespect to them, you know, All of the movies on the show I'm talking about, they're iconic. But they totally gave up on trying to make it scary. They made it more of like an action comedy. With Army of Darkness, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, it's way more of an action comedy. And there is some scary, there is some drama. But not nearly as much as the first movie or even Evil Dead 2. And it's like Evil Dead... And I should get this out of the way. Evil Dead 2 is my favorite in the series. And that's because I think it found the perfect balance between comedy, crazy over-the-topness, sort of exploitation-y, like, campiness, and legitimate horror. Because I think what really works about Evil Dead 2 is that it plays everything straight. It's not always winking at the audience like, oh, hey, that was a funny joke, right? Hey, remember when I replaced my hand? Hey, that's groovy, huh? The stuff that's happening in the movie is ridiculous, incredibly over the top, and sometimes intentionally comedic. But all of the characters in universe take the threat very seriously. And that's what makes it work. And so it was kind of disappointing with Army of Darkness, where everything is just so comedic and tongue-in-cheek. Which, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I still thought the movie was funny. But it just didn't have that feel to it that made Evil Dead so awesome. And so I feel like that was a real shame. But so that's what I really appreciate Evil Dead Rise for trying to bring the scary back in the series, like totally straight like horror. And yeah, I mean, they didn't do a bad job. This movie is pretty fucked up. I like to think of it as sort of the Resident Evil 7 of the Evil Dead franchise. Where it's sort of a controversial sequel, but there's no denying that, like, hey, if nothing else, it's pushing the series in the right direction. It's bringing everything back to its roots. It makes some crazy big changes that sort of might alienate some, like, longtime fans. But when you look at things from the bigger picture, it's like, yeah, that rocks. And also, it's like a good product. Oh, God, I love Resident Evil 7. And so I feel like I would have been a huge hypocrite to, complain about Evil Dead Rise being, oh, it's not like Evil Dead at all. Where's Ash? Where's this? Where's that? It's like when one of my favorite games of all time, Resident Evil 7, did that exact thing. It desecrated the Resident Evil franchise until 8 came out. Now everybody likes 7, and that's a whole other can of worms. That's a story for another episode, I think. But so I just appreciate, feeling that, sense of dread watching Evil Dead again. Thinking like, because the Deadites in Evil Dead Rise, they are fucking mean. Like, oh my God. It was like almost excessive. They're just so like gleefully like torturous. It's awful, but it's good. Because the Deadites, they're supposed to be awful. And, in recent times, recent being like, 8 years ago, they've sort of become more of a punchline. They're just some wacky demon zombie things. But this time it really shows, like, I just heard some banging outside. Ash, is that you? Okay, I think it was just someone firing off a gun or something. God, those... Whew. You want to talk about sense of dread. Oh my God, that freaking shook me. I forgot what I was saying. Because in recent times, the Deadites have become way more of a punchline than anything else. They're just these wacky demon zombies, and they run around and they say profanities and they just like mock people. It's funny. It's not like... I feel like... I kind of doubt people would really be scared of the Deadites and like
Ash versus the Evil Dead,
or even like Army of Darkness, or even Evil Dead 2, to be perfectly honest. But so it's just nice to see that Evil Dead Rise is really just making them this crazy, hellish, otherworldly threat that they were always supposed to be. My only problem, though, with... God, that banging is freaking me out, man. So, I appreciate how they made the Deadites a lot grittier. And really the setting in general. They made everything a lot grittier and, darker and edgier. And so I really appreciate that about the movie. But my only problem is that the protagonists did not really reflect this sort of darker change in tone. Because I feel like what makes Evil Dead so special is that Ash is a competent character. That's what was so cool about watching Evil Dead, is that it sort of plays on the idea of when people are watching horror movies, they're sort of scoffing at it, oh, come on, I would just do this. And the thing that was cool about Evil Dead is that Ash does that. Whatever the audience says, oh, I would just do this, he does that. Whether it be sawing off his own hand, even the crazy over-the-top stuff, he does it. And so that makes the fact that even despite him being so competent, he still gets hit around by the Deadites a lot. It's it's an exchange in punches all the time. That's what makes the Deadites so much scarier, is that even despite how competent Ash is, he can still get overwhelmed. He still doesn't know how to stop these Deadites. Gosh, and that's what makes it so cool. Is that, Ash takes some swings, and then the Deadites take some swings, and it's sort of it's like a boxing match. Evil Dead Rise, on the other hand, is more like backing a scared animal into a corner and just kind of watching them cower for around 2 hours. And then at the very end, they jump up and they bite you in the face, and then it's over. I was into the movie, watching it through maybe the first hour, and then at sort of the second, third act, I was kind of getting a little restless, I was getting kind of out of it, because it was just getting kind of repetitive, because the protagonists just get bullied by the Deadites, and it's just more and more of them die, and it's come on, this is just getting kind of pathetic. So it almost started entering sort of torture porn territory, if you're familiar with that term. And then the climax came, and I was really into it, because it was pure Evil Dead action. The protagonist says, "Come get some." God, it was perfect. Yeah, I'm glad out of all the lines they used, she didn't say groovy or anything. But it was that one was earned. You earned that one. But I just feel like the movie would have been a whole lot better if their protagonists, if they sort of beefed up the protagonists. Since, they beefed up the Deadites so much, it feels only right that the protagonist should be a little stronger too. I'm not saying beat for beat follow Ash, replace your hand with a chainsaw gauntlet, but I mean fight back a little more. They just get hit around a lot. And they don't actually kill any Deadites until the very end of the movie. And at that point, it didn't feel very satisfying. It's it was cool, but it's man, I wish the whole movie was like that. Because, that's how the original Evil Dead is. Ash kills a few Deadites. He doesn't just kill one at the very end. So it's sort of a build-up, he gets stronger and stronger. He sort of has that Macaulay Culkin, "I'm not afraid of you anymore" moment. And so you sort of feel that with the audience. You connect with Ash, and it's yeah, kick their asses, nice. It's cool to see him succeed. And that's not to say he's made of stone by the end of the movie. No, he's still very much a glass cannon. But it's it's sort of that change in attitude, I can beat them, I got this. I'm going to take them down if it's the last thing I do. But in this movie, they're basically unkillable. And that was something that really annoyed me, is that in the movie, they did this same thing over and over again, the same fake out, where it's the Deadites are attacking someone, and then finally they take a swing and they impale the Deadite or something. The Deadite goes, and then it dramatically falls to the ground. And then the person who stabbed them goes every single time. It's I feel you'd be used to bludgeoning someone at this point. Just keep going at it. They're gonna get up, because they always get up later. And so they reuse that 5 times. It's am I dead? No, I'm not. Because I'm freaking unkillable in this movie. So that was the only groan-worthy moment in the movie for me, is just that repetition, just beating down on the characters over and over again and not really giving them a chance to fight back. I feel that was the movie's worst quality. Because I feel that sort of exchange of power that I was talking about, I feel that's really what captures the Evil Dead vibe. Because that was my biggest thing with this movie is, coming out of it, I was thinking, my main problems with this movie stem from the fact that it's a sequel to Evil Dead. And there's sort of an expectation with the aesthetics and the vibe of everything that it be a certain way. Because if that movie was just released on its own, just as its own thing, I probably would have loved it. That's not to say, this should have been its own movie. It didn't have to be Evil Dead. Because I think it is perfectly functional as an Evil Dead movie. I'm just saying that a lot of the flaws, a lot of the issues I had with it stem from the fact that I have an expectation when it comes to watching Evil Dead movies. Because the thing, too, with, making your characters so underpowered is it gets kind of hard to feel for them and, root for them when they're just getting beaten around so much. It's obviously you don't want them to die. I never had that point where it's you're rooting for your death, rooting for their deaths, in Friday the 13th or something. But it was still, it took me out of it. And because the movie focuses so much on them just being, beaten down on, you don't really get a feel for the character's personality and everything like that. That's not to say I thought they were flat, but it's just, they could have been more. And I think the lack of, an iconic weapon or something really kind of dragged the movie down. Because the aunt character, I forget her name now. It's been a month since I've seen the movie. I should have made this podcast fresh off of watching it. But she was really badass. She was really cool. I really felt for her. And the daughter, too. But it's just they weren't very memorable. They weren't bad characters, but they weren't like Ash. And I'm not saying they have to be just like him. I'm not saying they have to throw around one-liners all the time and replace their limbs or anything. But I'm just saying they gotta have that connection with the audience, something that makes them iconic, something that makes them special and original. I really wish they utilized Staffney in some way. If Staffney was the iconic weapon of the movie, that would have been incredible. If she fastens Staffney to the shotgun like a bayonet, that would have been freaking incredible. And maybe it has a voice box in it, so it goes mama, mama when you're fucking blowing Deadeye's heads off. That would have been incredible, and it would have been distinctly Evil Dead Rise. That's something they can call around. Ash has the chainsaw hand. Evil Dead Rise has Staffney. That would have been wicked cool. And also, it would have worked from a story standpoint, because it's sort of showing the bond between the little girl and her aunt as sort of her new mother figure. And it really just shows and it would be a callback to the beginning of the movie where she's oh, what's with this? And the girl's oh, it's Staffney. If anyone ever tries to hurt me, I'll stab them with Staffney. And so it would be a darkly badass, wholesome moment. So I feel that was a really missed opportunity. I would have really loved to see that. All in all, though, it was a good movie. And I really hope that the people who worked on this movie, I'm not really sure about how, its critical score, its audience reception, but I really hope, the lack of coverage right now doesn't discourage them from making more movies, because this was a step in the right direction. I really like the things they did with it. I had my qualms with it, I had my problems with it, but I'm gonna have problems with every movie I see. So please don't give up on Evil Dead. I'm really glad you guys are showing passion, showing originality. That's awesome. We need more of that in the horror movie world and just in the movie industry in general. We need more cool original ideas like that. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for tonight's episode of CATTLECAST as I finish off the last of my banana. Yeah. You probably forgot about the banana gag. Well, I sure didn't. Because I could smell the banana gag right next to my nose as I'm recording this. But yeah, thanks for watching the video all the way through, guys. It means a lot to me. Pray for me. The banging outside stopped. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't even remember if I had an outro I did for the last one. I was thinking how to recreate a ending the video. I don't remember. I think I just kind of meandered around and then I stopped the video. So hey, I guess I did recreate it this time after all. Jesus Christ.